Coming up, Walgreens says customers who signed up for COVID testing may have had their personal information exposed. And the latest U.S. Census data shows poverty levels are on the rise across the U.S. Also, tips to help you fight insomnia and catch those well-needed Z's.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 5 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. Well, if you woke up overnight, it might have been because of the thunder and rain. Let's go straight to Michael.
Still got some lightning coming down. As a matter of fact, just on the east side of Joplin, picked up just a couple of strikes. Not quite done with our rain as of yet. Continuing to push through southwest Missouri. Everybody for really the central, northern, and western portions is done for the time being. But we're still looking at some bands of heavy rain here. We'll start down to northeast Oklahoma in between Grove and Jay, where it's coming down. That crosses the state line there into Newton County, Missouri. Then out by Mount Vernon along I-44. And then we've got one right in the state line, right in between Fort Scott and Nevada. Looks like that one's going to hover over Highway 54. Now, as far as our lightning strikes, you really have to go back, say, put that on about a 30-minute loop to see where that is. Whole bunch coming off now east of the Ozarks. And we are picking up several strikes on that aforementioned one in between Delaware County and up through Newton County. But there you see the radar shift momentarily and push everything off to the east. Should be done with this, I'd say, by about 7:30 this morning. As far as what we're looking at on the backside of it, not a whole lot of action. So once we're done, we get mild temperatures on Wednesday. Really shouldn't have to worry about much rain after that. This one down here right on the Kansas-Oklahoma state line, it's dropping to the south. So it's not going to be one of those that rides the state line and rolls through us. It'll drop down into central Oklahoma there. Give you an idea. National perspective, there is quite a bit of rain there, not only on that one that we were talking about on the Oklahoma-Kansas state line and then through us, but then it continues up through just about St. Louis and then makes its way all the way to Ohio, and of course everything down to the south. That is affiliated with what is now Tropical Depression Nicholas. No longer a tropical storm, tropical depression, but certainly the amount of rain that it's dropped along the Gulf Coast, they are far from being over with there as our flash flood warnings extend all the way into about the Florida Panhandle. Our temperatures right now sitting low to mid 60s, so it really has taken a little bite out of the temperatures compared to what we've had past couple of days. And even with the cloud cover that we have now, we're still going to be seasonable today, say about 84, 85 degrees. And then heat wave coming back and getting us, going to be dry and going to be hot headed into the weekend.
All right, well, enjoy it while it lasts. All right, thanks, Michael.
Yeah, like I said, by 7:30 we'll be fine this morning.
All right. Well, a major U.S. pharmacy says customers who registered for COVID-19 tests may have had their data exposed. Reports say Walgreens exposed the information of its customers on its website through its test registration system. Experts say a link to the confirmed test reservation gives access to private information with no login required. This includes access to birthdays, phone numbers, addresses, and emails. Insomnia is on the rise in every age group as people stress about the pandemic and everything. It's changed in the last year and a half. KOAM's Zach Dodge has details and some things you could try to get more and better sleep.
Sleep is something that we obviously all need, but several people are getting less of it.
As a physician, as a human in this pandemic, it has impacted my sleep.
Generally speaking, 15 to 30% of the population will have trouble sleeping.
During the pandemic, though, that number has increased to 40%, according to the National Institutes of Health, and the reason has been dubbed COVID-somnia.
Stress and sleep do not mix. Most of our stressors in our world are short-term. Unfortunately, the pandemic has been a long-term stress.
Psychiatrist Charles Graves at Access Family Care says that insomnia can impact physical and cognitive performance, like concentration, problem solving, and rational thinking.
Obviously, that impacts our school-age children at school, but also our adults who have to look after those children.
The misery factor goes up anytime you can't sleep.
Psychologist Charles Doyle says that can be especially detrimental to people who are already dealing with a mental illness like anxiety or depression.
It becomes a serious thing for them to deal with. and it decreases their daily function, increases their symptoms overall.
So what can you do to catch some more sleep? Here are some tips that all three experts recommend, with some of the bigger ones being: create a sleep schedule, turn off the screens, and try not to worry about the things that you cannot change. If that doesn't help, it may be time to seek out professional help.
If it goes for a week or more where people are having difficulties initiating and maintaining sleep, it's appropriate to speak with your physician at that period of time.
When your sleep is off, it's often a red flag that says that something else is off, that it needs to be attended to as well.
In Joplin, Zach Dodge, KOAM News.
Well, if you have a mental illness like anxiety and depression and endure the cycle of sleeplessness so long that it sends you into a crisis, the Ozark Center has a crisis intervention line, and that's 417-347-7720. Again, that number is 417-347-7720. 4 state organizations feel firsthand the increase in our nation's poverty level over the past 10 years. The Census Bureau announces new income and poverty data for the U.S., showing the poverty level increased 1% nationally. While localized data wasn't immediately available, the current poverty level in Southwest Missouri is already obvious to organizations that help those in need. Officials with Economic Security say they've seen a 26% increase in clients since 2019, partly due to the pandemic. Crosslines Ministry says it's seen peaks and valleys, but is beginning to see a steady increase in those seeking assistance.
The stimulus relieved the immediate crisis, which is what we do, but we're starting to see things trend back upward. Obviously, most people have used that stimulus up by this point and are beginning to have needs once again. So we're starting to see an uptick, and we expect that to increase significantly as we roll into the holiday season.
Coming up in our next half hour, we'll hear more from Crosslines and the Economic Security Corporation on local trends they've seen. Missouri Southern receives a grant to learn more about food insecurity with students. The Fosbeck Foundation grant gives the university $25,000 to fund research into food insecurity within Missouri college students. It will also look at their access to and knowledge of the SNAP program.
A better understanding of SNAP knowledge, SNAP awareness, and food insecurity in this population, so that we can then determine what type of interventions, what types of planning and programming need to be done across the state to help these students get enrolled in the SNAP program.
Kohlers, who heads up the Lion Co-op, will be directing the research. If you'd like to donate to the co-op, you can check out the link to this story on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. It's 5:07.
Picked up a little additional lightning down in Ottawa County, right there along in Miami, along I-44. It's also got a little pop-up of some heavy rain with it as well. Everything else pretty stagnant from the last time we checked, from Delaware into Newton County, and then from Bourbon into Vernon County as well. Got about a couple more hours of the showers before we clear off and have temperatures in the mid-80s today.
This morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News. In sports, the Girard Trojans prepare to meet Columbus on Friday in a big early season matchup on the gridiron. Plus, cases of the measles are discovered as Afghan evacuees arrive in the U.S. And Apple unveils its latest iPhone. We find out what it has to offer. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back.
Joplin Eagles playing at home on the diamond, a COC matchup against Carthage for the Eagles, aiming for the first conference win after falling to Webb City and Branson in the first 2 league games. Carthage, meanwhile, comes in with a 1-1 record in the league, 8-10 overall. Pitchers duel early, Jillian McDaniel, pair of strikeouts in the first inning. On the other side, Jensen Elder, she's slinging it for Carthage, strikeout there in the second, then another one in the third for Elder. Joplin did have his chance to strike first in the third. Jaden Pankow to right. Ball scoots away into the corner. Pankow in with a triple, but Elder gets out of the inning with, you guessed it, a strikeout. Game still scoreless. 4th inning, that was the big one for the Tigers. Mary Grace Richmond's got the bases loaded. Line drive into left, that's going plate 2. 7 runs for Carthage in the 4th. Tigers beat Joplin, final score 8-0. Girard Trojans are 2-0 to start the season, and on Friday have easily their biggest game of the season so far, hosting the Columbus Titans. An important game for both teams and a budding rivalry heading into their third meeting in the last year.
The last time Girard and Columbus were on the field together, the Trojans knocked the undefeated Titans out of the playoffs in the first round.
Going into it, I think, I'm certainly we're circled on a calendar somewhere, thinking that knocked them off last year in the playoffs, and I'm sure they're eager to play us. But at the same time, our guys, we got to understand that game has no bearing on what this year is, and we got to go take care of business.
And Girard is on a roll to start the season, blowing out both Colgan and Baxter Springs in their first 2 games.
We've gotten a chance to get a lot of people in. We took the opportunity to look at last week as, hey, how do we get better from week 1 to week 2? And there's some things that we did, and there's some things that we still need to get improved, and we're excited to get back to work and get that fixed this week.
Girard's defense has been impressive, allowing just 7 total points through 2 games.
Technique's a big thing for us. We're a little bit smaller up front, so it's a big thing for us right now.
We've got a good group there. We're we kept a lot of the same stuff that we had a year ago, so we're familiar with it. We've got some athletes that can fly around a little bit, but we've had turnovers. Guys have been doing a pretty good job of getting the ball and tackling. Guys just, kind of being unselfish in what they do, make the plays they're supposed to make, and let their teammates make the plays that they're supposed to make.
While Girard knows they can get the job done on Friday, they know it's an important game for Columbus, and the Titans will be ready to play.
They're a good team. They've got a lot of guys back from a year ago that had a nice team. They do some things very, very sound. They know their identity on both sides of the ball. It's kind of like us. They kind of know what they're doing. Defensively, they know what their responsibilities are, and they go play hard and play fast, and it's going to be a challenge for us.
Now, like Neil said, it was Girard that won the playoff game, but important to point out, Columbus beat Girard in the regular season last year before the Trojans returned the favor in the playoffs. Columbus Titans 1-1 this year through the first 2 games. Still to come on the KOAM Morning News, the latest tech.
Apple is out with its new iPhone. I'm Naomi Ruckham with how it stacks up to other devices, including the new Samsung Fold 3.
And to check on our 7-day forecast when the KOAM Morning News returns. 5:17, and we ended up with a little much needed rain here overnight. It's still going on this morning, and we still got some thunder and lightning associated with it as well. Saw anywhere from about 1.25 inches out to the west to 2 inches in the central and eastern portion of southwest Missouri, minus Vernon County, where I think we're going to be in excess of 3 inches by the time this is said and done. We've got another one right there on the state line, right on Highway 54 in between Fort Scott and Nevada. This one down here in northeast Oklahoma, that's actually where we've seen the most recent lightning, and we haven't seen a whole lot of strikes associated with it. Every now and then we'll get a new one that'll pop up. That goes back, that's a 30-minute time range that you're seeing there. So we'll go back in time, kind of give you an idea of where that's the majority of our lightning. The other part, you're going to have to go out to Branson. And then while we've got some heavy rain there in Ottawa County and moves into Newton County, really everything going through southwest Missouri right now, more of the September shower variety, not a whole lot of heavy rain, nor any thunder or lightning. So everything's moving from west to east and nothing really behind it. So after this pushes off to the east, we'll be done here, but that probably won't be till about 7:30. Soaking wet intersection over 7th and Range Line sits at 66 degrees right now. Temperatures cooler than what we've had after the front rolled through. Really from about 63 to, we do have a 70 out there in Nevada, but it's really from about 63 to 69 is what we're looking at in Chanute. Skywatch Storm Tracker, once again, the thunderstorm activity followed right along that front where we see the cooler temperatures, and we are going to be pretty mild compared to what we've had past couple of days. Really, it's going to be pretty seasonable where we should be for this time of year. Let's run down here, take a look at what is now post-tropical storm Nicholas, now a tropical depression, but still dumping tons of rain along the Gulf Coast, and will continue to do so as it kind of rides the coast towards the Florida Panhandle. They are still putting up with all the flooding in Texas, but for the time being, they should be done with having to deal with anything that Nicholas has behind it. Here in the 4 states, we'll go with temperatures today in the mid-80s. Going to take a while for that cloud cover to clear off, so we'll have to wait for some sun. But after we do, we're going to stay on the dry side here for next several days, as everything just going to kind of look at it, just kind of sloughs off to the east, and then by the time we get, like I said, 8, 9 o'clock, we're going to be done. And then we get ready for the heat to return, because there's a chance with the Gulf moisture hanging around, Thursday's going to be a little bit muggy, and then we'll be rolling mid-90s there by the time we get to Saturday and Sunday. Turn our attention now to our KOAM News Now Facebook page and our Something to Talk About. Nicholas just keeps on jumping up right there. There we go. You can always connect to us via the Facebook page or go to the Instapoll, KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. As Apple released a number of new devices, including a new iPad and Apple Watch, and the most anticipated item, the new iPhone. Naomi Rockham tells us about the latest features.
We are thrilled to introduce our next generation of iPhone.
Apple CEO Tim Cook used a virtual event to show off the new iPhone 13. There are no major changes, but the 5G device offers a faster processor and longer battery life. There's also an updated camera that records video in cinematic mode, and the company says pictures are even sharper.
Brighter results in your photos and videos.
How big are iPhone sales for the company?
The iPhone is still Apple's most important product, right? It represents about half of the company's revenue.
CNET's Ian Scher says the camera has become a huge selling point for all smartphone companies.
The features we've seen in the last few years are built around being able to take better photos, being able to take photos that look very professional.
Apple's main competitor in smartphone sales is Samsung. Last month, the company revealed its latest version of the Galaxy phone, which unfolds into a larger device. The Galaxy Z Fold 3 comes with 5G and an $1,800 price tag, which is actually cheaper than last year's $2,000 version. Samsung also has a $1,000 new Flip 3 that can fold in half.
This is the Pixel 5a with 5G.
The recently released 5A is Google's cheaper phone, priced at $450. The company is expected to unveil a brand new Pixel 6 later this fall.
These are the best iPhones we've ever created.
Prices for the new iPhone lineup are the same as last year.
Because the design hasn't changed much, reality is keeping the prices around where they are is good business decision for them.
The new phones will be available on September 24th. Naomi Rockham, CBS News, New York.
Our question for you is, do you plan on purchasing the new Apple iPhone 13? Gave you 3 different choices. And once again, you can go to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote or through Facebook. We'll be back with Healthwatch next.
Topping Healthwatch this morning, a temporary halt on all flights of Afghan evacuees coming into the country after cases of the measles were found in 5 people who had recently arrived in the U.S. While officials are working to notify anyone who may have been exposed at an airport, hospital, or hotel, health experts say the highly contagious virus is almost entirely preventable through vaccination. Mandy Gaither has more on what you need to know about measles.
Inbound to the U.S., Afghans seeking refuge, but now a warning for anyone potentially exposed, whether on board, in an airport, hospital, or hotel. Cases of measles were found in 5 people who recently arrived in the U.S.
We want the people who work on these bases and the families who live there to know how seriously we're taking it.
All flights of Afghan evacuees into the U.S. have been halted for at least a week. The Department of Defense says they're working to immunize evacuees before they arrive. Those infected are being housed separately and are getting medical care as contact tracing continues, and some are asked to quarantine.
If somebody has measles around you and you are not vaccinated, you have a 90% chance of getting measles.
Dr. Nora Colburn, an infectious diseases specialist at the Ohio State Wexner Medical Center, says those most at risk are children who haven't been fully vaccinated and those who are immunocompromised. The CDC says measles is one of the most contagious diseases in the world. While the virus was eliminated in the U.S. in 2000, recent declines in measles vaccinations have caused cases of this vaccine-preventable disease to rebound.
It's characterized by fever, cough, conjunctivitis, which is redness around the eyes, and a fine rash.
The CDC says measles can be dangerous, especially for babies and young children. Dr. Colburn says it's preventable with vaccination.
It's heartbreaking. Nobody should have to die of this disease.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
That's when you get when you can. Well, the CDC says measles symptoms can appear 1 to 2 weeks after a person is exposed. The measles rash appears 3 to 5 days after the first symptoms. Kansas adds Dollar General locations to the vaccine incentive program. Anyone who gets a vaccine at a participating Dillon's or Dollar General location will receive a $50 gift card for each dose. There are a number of local stores participating. You can find a list in the story on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. That's a look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. Coming up, Walgreens says customers who signed up for COVID testing may have had their personal information exposed. And the latest U.S. Census data shows poverty levels are on the rise across the U.S. Also tips to help you fight insomnia and catch those well-needed Z's.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 5:30. I'm Tanya Bach. Well, the 4 states definitely saw a few showers overnight. Some of the areas still getting it. Let's go straight to Michael with a look at your forecast.
Biggest developments we've seen as far as our morning rain. We'll start with Vernon and Bourbon County, where actually it's beginning to get better along Highway 54. We still do see some of the yellow involved right there. Vernon County got dumped on last night. We're going to look in excess of 3 inches by the time it's said and done. Everybody else pretty much in between 1 to 2 inches. Then as we drop down here along 44, just to the south side, making its way just about through Ottawa County. Ottawa County is still where we're seeing the hardest rain, though. That thing is coming down good. And look at all that lightning that we've picked up here in the last 15 minutes alone. So that's going to move to the east and cross its way into Missouri. Everything on the east side of that little line is more so September showers. We've still got probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours left of the rain before it is completely said and done. It has calmed down over 7th and Rangeline, though, where we sit at 66 degrees. We're anywhere from low to high 60s. Chinook getting up there to 70 as well. By the time we get into the weekend, we're going to be talking about temperatures that are going to be hotter than certainly what we're going to have today. Today, seasonable. We'll go afternoon highs of 85. Shouldn't have to worry about that rain once it is all said and done. Then Thursday, we lock back in for the high 80s, reemergence of the 90s just in time for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and will continue to carry us into what at that point in time is going to be getting ready for the latter third of September.
Well, definitely going to be hot. We'll get used to it. I can't wait for fall.
This afternoon's going to be delightful.
Yeah, that'll be nice. All right, thanks, Michael. A Joplin man who owns a Pittsburgh business is indicted by a federal grand jury on 5 counts of false statement in a tax return. Kenneth Model owns Model Construction in Pittsburgh. Prosecutors say Model underreported the company's gross income from 2015 to 2019 by more than $1 million. 4 state organizations that serve folks in need feel firsthand the increase in our nation's poverty level over the past 10 years. KOAM's Chris Warner spoke with 2 of those organizations about what they're seeing in our region.
On Tuesday, the Census Bureau released its Income and Poverty Report, which showed a 1% increase in poverty nationally. New local numbers weren't immediately available, but as of 2019, the city of Joplin had a nearly 19% poverty rate, while the national average is at 10% and the state average is at 12%. The number of people living in poverty is placing an increased demand on local service providers as well.
The stimulus relieved the immediate crisis, which is what we do, but we're starting to see things trend back upward.
For Crosslines, Executive Director Rodney Rambo says they're grateful for the assistance they get from the community to help meet those increased needs.
We were started through the generosity of the community, through the local churches, and we continue to depend on that today. So fortunately, we live in a place where our community tends to respond to need very well.
Rambo says he's concerned the poverty percentage in Joplin could go up.
We do expect that number to continue to increase. Joplin, we tend to have a higher poverty level than the surrounding region.
Over at the Economic Security Corporation, they've seen a 26% increase in customers needing assistance since 2019.
So it definitely could go up. I think if it does, more customers will be seeking assistance. My hope is that some of the programming that we do will help people get out of poverty or get into a better situation.
Community Development Director Tammy Walker says part of that increase is due to the pandemic, but another side effect of the pandemic has been an increase to funding to organizations like Economic Security to provide services.
And we were able to look at the needs in the community and create programs that we haven't done before. For example, we were offering water bill assistance, and that's taken off.
In Joplin, Chris Warner, KOAM News.
For those looking for help, we've put links to Economic Security and to Crosslines in this story on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Missouri Southern receives a grant to learn more about food insecurity with students. The Fosbeck Foundation grant gives the university $25,000 to fund research into food insecurity in Missouri college students. It'll also look at students' access and knowledge of the SNAP program.
Looking at public, private institutions, community colleges, technical schools, and then also asking those students, do you know what SNAP is? Do you know how to access SNAP? And so really getting a better understanding of SNAP knowledge, SNAP awareness, and food insecurity in this population.
Kohlers, who heads up the Lion Co-op, will direct the research. If you'd like to donate to the co-op, you can check out the link to the story on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Well, a pest is causing damage to lawns across the 4 states. Officials say army worms are spreading across the area, rapidly eating large amounts of grass. Army worms are actually caterpillars that reproduce in large quantities and spread over a field like an army. They feed primarily on Bermuda grass, ryegrass, fescue, bluegrass, and some crops.
The moths get blown from the south. The moths lay eggs lots of times on the side of your house, shop, fence, and the leaves of the trees. And when the eggs hatch, the worms fall and start munching on the grass. And then you start to see the grass declining and being destroyed.
Experts say one of the most effective ways to prevent their spread is to just be aware and take action if you notice any problems. Well, more people are getting less sleep during the pandemic. The National Institutes of Health says 40% of people have had some kind of sleep problem during the pandemic. Local health experts say losing sleep can cause a variety of physical and mental issues, and those include poor performance at work or school because of the inability to concentrate. It can affect your mood and rational and critical thinking. They say anyone can experience insomnia and that it can make life more difficult for people who are dealing with mental illness.
The misery factor goes up anytime you can't sleep. The worry about going to sleep actually increases. It becomes a serious thing for them to deal with. And it decreases their daily function, increases their symptoms overall.
Coming up in our next half hour, we'll hear from mental health experts on what happens when you can't sleep and what you can do to try to catch some Z's. Missouri Southern students get a chance to taste an authentic Japanese meal. It's part of the school's Japan semester, introducing students to different parts of Japanese culture. Tuesday's event, called A Taste of Japan, was held in the Mays Student Life Center. For $10, students got a full Japanese meal provided by the executive chef of Fresh Ideas. That's a look at our top news stories. Coming up this half hour on the KOAM Morning News, a Capitol Hill grill out.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken back in the hot seat after being grilled by House lawmakers. I'm Skyler Henry on Capitol Hill as senators get their chance to question the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Plus, it's a happy ending for a dog who was born with upside-down paws. But first, it's 5:37.
Heaviest rain working its way from northeast Oklahoma right across the state line into southwest Missouri. Also got some lightning with that. After that, it turns into showers down in the southern portion of southwest Missouri. Everybody else beginning to calm down now. Should be done with this by about 7:30, and then up into the mid-80s later on today. We'll be back with World Watch next.
Topping World Watch, Haiti's top prosecutor is seeking charges for the assassination of the country's late president, Jovenel Moise. The charges are directed against Prime Minister Ariel Henry. He's also barred the Prime Minister from leaving the country. The prosecutor cited evidence that a key suspect in the assassination called Henry in the hours after the murder. The investigation into the July 7th killing is ongoing and has turned up dozens of suspects, including U.S. and Colombian citizens. Secretary of State Antony Blinken spent more than 3.5 hours on the hot seat defending the Biden administration's withdrawal from Afghanistan. Skylar Henry has more details from Tuesday's hearings on Capitol Hill.
Senators arrived on Capitol Hill prepared to grill Secretary of State Antony Blinken about the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan.
I would like to hear the truth as opposed to the kind of excuses we've been getting from this administration. It's been disgraceful.
Most senators, though not all, agreed with the decision to withdraw, but they disagreed with how it was done.
Doing the right thing in the wrong way can end up being the wrong thing.
Many of the questions focused on the 100 or so Americans and thousands of Afghan allies who haven't made it out.
I'd like to focus more on the moral stain of leaving people behind.
Abandoning essential honor and moral imperative by failing to do more to evacuate American citizens and Afghan allies.
Secretary Blinken said consular officers are in constant contact with the Americans still in Afghanistan, and he said the government did what it could to get everyone out.
Our consular team worked 24/7 to reach out to Americans who could still be in country, making 55,000 phone calls, sending 33,000 emails by August 31st. And they're still at it.
Lawmakers on both sides also disagreed with Secretary Blinken's comment that the Afghan government fell much quicker than anticipated.
Even the most pessimistic assessments did not predict that the government forces in Kabul would collapse while U.S. forces remained.
I just don't think that's true. This wasn't a failure of intelligence. This was a failure of policy and planning.
And some question whether America is in more danger of a terrorist attack after leaving Afghanistan. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Senate Foreign Relations Chairman Bob Melendez criticized Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's decision not to testify Tuesday and suggested he may issue a subpoena to compel his testimony. Secretary Austin said he had a scheduling conflict and he welcomes the chance to testify at a later date. That's a look at some of your biggest headlines from around the world. Let's toss it over to Michael for our Something to Talk About.
Hey, Tanya, KOAM News Now Facebook page in the morning Instapoll as Apple released a number of new devices yesterday, including a new iPad and Apple Watch, but the most anticipated item, the new iPhone. Our question for you, do you plan to purchase the new Apple iPhone 13? Right now, 51% of you say, nah, got better things to do, not even an Apple Pen. Only 12% say, yeah, as soon as it comes out. 37% of you saying, going to do it. Going to take the plunge, but going to wait a little bit as well. We'll be back with the news you need to know before you head out the door right after this.
Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. Major U.S. pharmacy says customers who registered for COVID-19 tests may have had their data exposed. Reports say Walgreens exposed the information of its customers on its website through its test registration system. Experts say a link to the confirmed test reservation gives access to private information with no login required. This includes access to birthdays, phone numbers, addresses, and emails. The U.S. Census Bureau announces new income and poverty data for the U.S. It shows the poverty level increased 1% nationally. Here in the 4 states, officials with the Economic Security say they've seen a 26% increase in clients since 2019, partly due to the pandemic. Crosslines Ministry says it's seen peaks and valleys, but is beginning to see a steady increase in those seeking assistance. Missouri Southern receives a grant to learn more about food insecurity among students. The Fosbeck Foundation grant gives the university $25,000 to fund research into food insecurity in Missouri college students. It'll also look at students' access and knowledge of the SNAP program. Well, there's a lawn invasion underway in the 4 states. Army worms are spreading across the area, rapidly eating large amounts of grass. Army worms are actually caterpillars that reproduce in large quantities and spread over a field like an army. They feed primarily on Bermuda grass, ryegrass, fescue, bluegrass, and some crops. Experts say army worms can destroy areas as large as a football field in 2 to 3 days. Now, there are some insecticides you can use to protect your lawn. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
Still got some lingering rain holding on, especially down in northeast Oklahoma, right there on the Delaware-Ottawa County line. That's going to move to the east across the state line into Missouri. Our one up to the north by Fort Scott and Nevada, it's gotten a little bit better. Still, Vernon County's picked up close to 3 inches of rain out on the eastern portion of it. So that's what we're looking at as we ride the Arkansas-Missouri state line. Most of that remains as showers this morning. I kind of lost our lightning from that. So that's a good thing. We're headed in the right direction here. Should be done with this by about 7:30. Temperatures pretty mild right now, anywhere from, say, 63 to 70 degrees. And after we're done with the rain, then we're going to have to fight some cloud cover early on. Eventually it'll break up. We'll get some late afternoon, early evening sunshine. But temperature's very, very nice today. I'd say 84, 85, hard to beat that, because once we're done with the rain and one day of mild temperatures, our overnight lows not going to help us out too much. We're only going to hang in the high 60s. And then, yeah, beginning tomorrow, 87, beginning Friday, 90s. And that string of 90s carries us all the way into next week. We'll be back right after this.
Well, it's something you wouldn't wish on any dog. Paws that face the wrong way. Jeannie Moose shares the story about a puppy who has learned to walk again.
It's not easy for a dog to give you her paw, let alone walk when they're facing the wrong way.
We would call it paws upside down.
Meet Siggy, a rat terrier with a rare defect.
What a good girl you are.
Her out-of-joint elbows allowed her lower limbs to rotate 180 degrees.
Paws facing straight up rather than straight down.
But Dallas Dog Rescue Rehab Reform knew where to take Siggy to Oklahoma State University's College of Veterinary Medicine.
Siggy could muster a crawl of sorts. She was actually kind of walking on the tops of her wrists.
Dr. Eric Clary is the go-to surgeon who has fixed this rare problem before. Milo, the foxhound, had his operation in 2019. And once he had his pins and his splint removed, he was ready to learn to walk again. Here he is doggy paddling at swim therapy. His story went viral. His baleful eyes won him fans on TV, exchanging kisses with his owner from Oliver and Friends Farm Sanctuary.
What you doing?
Siggy had her surgery back in May when she was just over 3 months old.
We actually had to break the bones high up in the forearm.
This was literally the pivotal shot.
That was the first picture ever taken of Siggy's paws in the correct orientation.
She also had temporary pins in her elbows and had to wear a splint for weeks.
Come see me.
Once the splint was removed, she had to build back muscle mass. Learning to walk again was no walk in the park, but she was happy to tread on the treadmill for treats. And now she can bound and chase a ball. She may never be a ballerina, but she is too cute. Jeannie Moose, CNN, New York.
Aww. I just think it's interesting that they've got experience with this exact type of surgery.
That's pretty amazing that somebody would even be like, hey, I got an idea, we can fix this dog. That's crazy.
Yeah, and they did.
All right, Instapoll and Facebook page this morning. Our something to talk about is the release of new Apple stuff. I guess there's a new iPad, new watch, and the new iPhone 13. Specifically, our question to you is, do you plan to purchase the new Apple iPhone 13? 62% of you say not even really crossing your radar because you're not an Apple fan, compared to only 9% who say, yeah, go and grab one as soon as I can. Remember, each and every morning, 2 ways to do it. You can either go to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote, or connect to us via Facebook. We'll be back, update the Skywatch storm tracker right after this. Heaviest of it coming down this morning in northeast Oklahoma, getting ready to cross into southwest Missouri. We see it jockeying right along the Ottawa-Delaware County line, and then after it crosses into the Show Me State, into Mcdonald County, that thing's got a little lightning on the backside of it too. Up here by Bourbon and Vernon County, things looking much better here in the past half hour as the rain is beginning to lighten up and the lightning has pretty much ceases to exist. Heavy overcast skies for everybody else now that the system continues to push off to the east. Temperatures very, very nice, 66 degrees. It's quite comfortable when you walk outside, not having to fight that south wind anymore as well, and eventually making it up into the mid-80s. So we're going to have about a 20-degree increase there from where we all start. Rain should be done by about 7:30. Then we're going to dry off for the rest of the week and the weekend. Speaking of the weekend, you'll notice that big number 9 comes back on Friday, and that rides us into next week. We're going to be talking about 90-degree temperatures latter 3rd of September.
Coming up, Walgreens says customers who signed up for COVID testing may have had their personal info exposed. And the latest U.S. Census data shows poverty levels are on the rise across the U.S. Also, tips to help you fight insomnia and catch those well-needed Z's.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 6 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. Not sure how you could sleep through it, but we did have a little storm move through overnight. Let's go to Michael.
About 1.25 to 2 inches of rain, minus Vernon County, Missouri, which is inundated. I've got reports coming out of Vernon County that are closer to 3+ inches of rain. It's still coming down in Vernon County, right there where you see it in Nevada, right along 49. The heaviest rain right now, that's for northeast Oklahoma, getting ready to cross the state line into Mcdonald County, Missouri. But it really is Grove and just south of Miami that are bearing the brunt. We've got about 6-7 lightning strikes that have popped up as well. Everything's moving from west to east, so we've still got probably about an hour before we're all said and done. Soaking wet intersection over 7th and Range Line. 66 degrees is where we stand. Temperature's certainly not too bad, even after it rolled through. Nice and mild this morning. We'll roll from about 65 up to 68, 69. Had a couple 70s earlier. Of course, we've got our band of rain and we know what's going on down south. So let's take a quick look at Nicholas, now a tropical depression, forcing all that precipitation there through New Orleans into Mississippi and Alabama. Nice thing is Texas, despite the fact that they are partly underwater, gets a chance to take a breath today, begin their cleanup. Our weather trend's going to put us into the mid-80s. Just going to have to wait a little bit for the afternoon and evening hours until we pick up some sunshine. But after this rain's done, you'll notice we're going to be on the dry side and the hot side. So we'll have mild temperatures today, just above seasonable tomorrow, and then the 90s from Friday all the way to next week.
All right. Well, enjoy it today, I guess.
Yep, one-shot deal.
Yeah. Well, a major U.S. pharmacy says customers who registered for COVID-19 tests may have had their data exposed. Reports say Walgreens exposed the information of its customers on its website through its test registration system. Experts say a link to the confirmed test reservation gives access to private information with no login required. This includes access to birthdays, phone numbers, addresses, and emails. Well, insomnia is on the rise in every age group as people stress about the pandemic and everything. It's changed in the last year and a half. KOAM's Zach Dodge has details and some things you could try to get more and better sleep.
Sleep is something that we obviously all need, but several people are getting less of it.
As a physician, as a human in this pandemic, it has impacted my sleep.
Generally speaking, 15 to 30% of the population will have trouble sleeping.
During the pandemic, though, that number has increased to 40%, according to the National Institutes of Health, and the reason has been dubbed COVID-somnia.
Stress and sleep do not mix. Most of our stressors in our world are short-term. Unfortunately, the pandemic has been a long-term stress.
Psychiatrist Charles Graves at Access Family Care says that insomnia can impact physical and cognitive performance, like concentration, problem solving, and rational thinking.
Obviously, that impacts our school-age children at school. but also our adults who have to look after those children.
The misery factor goes up anytime you can't sleep.
Psychologist Charles Doyle says that can be especially detrimental to people who are already dealing with a mental illness like anxiety or depression.
It becomes a serious thing for them to deal with, and it decreases their daily function, increases their symptoms overall.
So what can you do to catch some more sleep? Here are some tips that all three experts recommend, with some of the bigger ones being create a sleep schedule, turn off the screens, and try not to worry about the things that you cannot change. If that doesn't help, it may be time to seek out professional help.
If it goes for a week or more where people are having difficulties initiating and maintaining sleep, it's appropriate to speak with your physician at that period of time.
When your sleep is off, it's often a red flag that says that something else is off, that it needs to be attended to as well.
In Joplin, Zach Dodge, KOAM News.
If you have a mental illness like anxiety and depression and endure the cycle of sleeplessness so long that it sends you into a crisis, the Ozark Center has a crisis intervention line. That's 417-347-7720. Again, that number is 417-347-7720. 4 state organizations feel firsthand the increase in our nation's poverty level over the past 10 years. The Census Bureau announces new income and poverty data for the U.S., showing the poverty level increased 1% nationally. While localized data was not immediately available, the current poverty level in Southwest Missouri is already obvious to organizations that help those in need. Officials with the Economic Security say they've seen a 26% increase in clients since 2019, partly due to the pandemic. Crossline Ministry says it's seen peaks and valleys, but is beginning to see a steady increase in those seeking assistance.
The stimulus relieved the immediate crisis, which is what we do, but we're starting to see things trend back upward. Obviously, most people have used that stimulus up by this point and are beginning to have needs once again. So we're starting to see an uptick, and we expect that to increase significantly as we roll into the holiday season.
Coming up in our next half hour, we'll hear more from Crosslines and the Economic Security Corporation on local trends they've seen. Missouri Southern receives a grant to learn more about food insecurity with students. The Fosbeck Foundation grant gives the university $25,000 to fund research into food insecurity within Missouri college students. It'll also look at their access to and knowledge of the SNAP program.
A better understanding of SNAP knowledge, SNAP awareness, and food insecurity in this population, so that we can then determine what type of interventions, what types of planning and programming need to be done across the state to help these students get enrolled in the SNAP program.
Kohlers, who heads up the Lion Co-op, will be directing the research. If you'd like to donate to the co-op, you can check out the link to the story on our website, KOAMnewsnow.com. 6:07.
It is not calming down south of I-44 in the Delaware, Ottawa County area. That is for sure. Very heavy rain rolling through Grove, staying south of Miami, now making its way into Mcdonald County, right across the state line. Temperatures today after the rain is over, say about 7:30. Then we're going to make it up into the mid-80s. Very delightful afternoon with some late sunshine, and then hot as we head into the weekend.
Top stories in weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, this week's Wildcat Wednesday focuses on resiliency and lessons learned. Plus, why listening may really be selective. We'll have that story in Healthwatch, along with the link between eye health and dementia risk. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News. It is a Wildcat Wednesday, and we are fortunate enough to be joined by Tara Solomon-Smith of the Wildcat Extension District, Kansas State Research and Extension. Tara, thank you so much for joining us, because you have an interesting topic and activity that you're going to show us this morning, but it comes down to the topic of resiliency. Now, how would you define resiliency, and what's kind of your elevator speech when you talk about the importance of it?
Sure. So resiliency is the ability to bounce back from a difficult situation. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I don't feel like I bounce back as good as others. For example, for some students, a C on a test may not be any big deal, but it might be life-altering for another. So that's an example of resiliency. And it is important so that we can be our best selves and be able to be the best that we can be for our families and coworkers and those that are around us.
Well, another thing too is coming off of what we've had, I was going to say the past calendar year, but seemingly it's been about 2.5 years that we've all been trying to bounce back from one thing or another. How important is it to reinforce or maybe educate people about resiliency, especially with what we've been through, whether it be pandemic, whether it be personal losses? How important is that become to you?
Oh, absolutely. You're exactly right. The last two years have been the perfect example that, we're just just feel like we're getting by, surviving, getting through the day. And sometimes you have to be there. But for the long haul, resiliency is important. This activity comes from Your Thoughts Matter. So mental health obviously is a topic right now more than ever, just coping strategies and dealing with stress, which we've all been through.
Yeah, I want to dive into this activity with you because you've got a hammer sitting right there.
I do.
I got to see. Right? Will you walk us through this resiliency activity?
Yes, so this is easy to do, whether you're at home, in your classroom, or I did this with adults at YMCA last week. So you just grab things that are around you. Okay. I have a banana, a bouncy ball, rubber band, paper clips, some chips, and a sweatshirt and a water bottle. You can be empty or full.
Okay.
So just anything that's close by at your house. And you're going to test the resiliency of these items with, you're right, you saw my hammer here. So it could be a stress reliever, just the activity in itself, right? But you just test these items with a hammer, and then you talk about, well, what are some characteristics of low and high resiliency? For example, the group I did last week with YMCA, when I smashed the banana, what do you think it looked like?
It's going to be a mess, but like you said, it may be a little fun.
Right. So what they said, but you can make banana bread out of it now. And that is the spot on an example of how to cultivate resiliency. Instead of focusing on why is this happening, focus on, okay, so what are some steps I can do to move forward, to improve, or what did I learn from this situation, instead of only focusing on what's going on and why it's happening. So that was a perfect example.
Essentially, with the exercise with the hammer, is it how I come out on the other end?
Yeah, and it can just teach you what may be a characteristic resiliency. For example, this sweatshirt, my K-State sweatshirt. I pounded on it, and the indention stayed. So that's a great example of taking care of yourself. So, there was nothing inside this sweatshirt. So just like a pitcher of water, the more you pour out, and if it's empty and you don't refill it, it's not going to bounce back quite as well. So it's very important to find out what it means to take care of yourself, and you want to be sure to include some fun.
What's some of the feedback that you've gotten from people after they've gone through this lesson?
Yeah, so I think that they, after brainstorming some sources of joy and comfort in those coping strategies, there were some light bulb moments as far as, something as simple as just stepping away and listening to some music might help me be able to come back to this stressful situation a little bit better. It doesn't have to be anything big, but something that works for you.
If you're leading an organization, a company, and you want to get in touch with Tara and maybe get some tips on how to help your employees through what's certainly been a rough 2 years. Tara, how do they get in touch with you if they want to learn more about resiliency?
Absolutely. Love to hear from anybody. Call one of our offices. They'll connect you to me. Email tsolomon@ksu.edu. Facebook message us. However you want to connect, we'll be there for you.
Tara Solomon-Smith, I want to thank you. Tara, I want to thank you so much for your time this morning. I did not do that at the beginning, and I apologize for that. K-State Wildcat District, you guys do amazing stuff for us, and we appreciate having you on each and every Wildcat Wednesday.
Thank you, Michael.
All right, great to see you. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News right after this. Going through our rain totals from the overnight thunderstorm activity, Joplin Regional Airport, according to our daily almanac, right at pretty much an inch of rain right there. Still puts us down a little bit for the month and also the year. About half an inch is what we'll be down for the year. Waiting on Chinook's totals to come out and give you an update on that. 7th of the range line is still waiting to dry off as well. Now, when we talk about the rain that we have right now, Vernon County, Missouri is where we saw the majority of it fall. We saw a good bout right there in Nevada and just to the east of it. Let's concentrate on what we're looking at. Our heaviest band of rain now stretching from Grove, just on the north side of Jay, stayed to the south of Miami. And we've seen lightning really diminish, so that's a very good sign. And then as it crosses over into Mcdonald County, we see more of it being showers from Mcdonald County into Berry County. And not a whole lot on the backside of it. Are going to keep our eyes on this coming out of Nowata as well, because those two have kind of connected right now. So when we talk about what we've seen as far as rainfall goes, go ahead and remove the satellite and the radar here. Really everybody mostly staying in between, say, inch to 2 inches, but right up here in between that Nevada and Stockton area, that's where it got a little hairy, where we're talking about 3.5 inches of rain overnight. And of course, remember, still falling right now, and we've got the Osage, Little Osage, the Marmaton, the whole nine. No flood warnings have arisen as of yet, but that's something we'll keep our eyes on for the rest of the day and head into tomorrow as well. 66 degrees right now over Joplin. Temperature is very comfortable after the rain rolls through your neck of the woods, ranging anywhere from, say, 64 to 68. Skywatch Storm Tracker. It's a nice little band that begins with us and then stretches all the way to the Ohio River Valley. Run down and take a look at what is now Tropical Depression Nicholas, no longer a tropical storm, forcing the rain through New Orleans into Mississippi and Alabama, giving everybody on the west side of it, specifically the Houston area, a chance to dry off for today. We're going to get some sunshine later on. Rain's going to stick around here for the next 40 minutes to an hour, and then it'll be gone. Then we got to wait for the clouds to kind of break. Later afternoon, we will get some sunshine and we're going to be dry. And today's going to be delightful this afternoon. We're talking 85 degrees. You got an outside project. This is the day to do it because it's going to get hot as we head into the weekend. We'll be back with Healthwatch right after this.
Topping Healthwatch this morning, the Jasper County Health Department reports 6 more COVID-19 deaths. Patients were 3 men in their 30s, 40s, and 60s, and 3 women in their 50s, 60s, and 80s. The number of total COVID-19 deaths in the county now stands at 213. While hospitals in parts of the country struggle to keep up with the number of COVID-19 patients, the government is evaluating data to determine if Americans should get a booster shot. Other countries are already making the move for parts of their population. Natalie Brand reports from the White House.
Emergency departments in hard-hit areas are overwhelmed with COVID patients.
We lost 5 patients yesterday.
Teresa King is the ICU nurse supervisor at Cape Coral Hospital in Florida.
There's no time to wait. There's people waiting for the beds before it even happens.
In Alabama, where only about 40% are fully vaccinated, ICU beds have reached capacity.
We've got patients on ventilators in hallways.
More than 300 additional Kentucky National Guard members have been sent to serve in logistical roles at hospitals across that state, trying to relieve some of the burden. While some states struggle to get even a first dose in people's arms, Friday, an FDA advisory committee will hold a meeting to discuss Pfizer's application for a booster shot. This comes as 2 outgoing FDA officials questioned the need for a third shot, telling The Lancet widespread boosting should be undertaken only if there is clear evidence that it is appropriate. It's a position that puts them at odds with the FDA, top Biden administration health officials, and outside medical experts.
I think it's inappropriate for current FDA officials to write an op-ed based on their ideas.
CBS medical contributor Dr. David Agus says new data coming out of Israel makes a convincing case. The country approved a booster shot for 60 and older in late July.
I've talked to health officials there, and it's clear that immunity goes down on a monthly basis, and giving a booster shot raises immunity 4 to 10-fold.
The UK announced starting next week it will offer booster shots for people over 50 and the vulnerable. Natalie Brandt, CBS News, the White House.
Israel recently expanded its booster program to include anyone over 12. In other health news, a new study in the British Journal of Ophthalmology links certain eye conditions with an increased risk of dementia. Researchers followed more than 12,000 adults for as long as 15 years. They found a 26% higher risk of dementia in those with age-related macular degeneration, 11% higher risk with cataracts, and 61% higher risk with diabetes-related eye disease. Prominent store displays of e-cigarettes and smoking paraphernalia may undermine the effectiveness of banning tobacco displays to discourage the habit. Researchers in Great Britain looked at shops in 2 cities and found that the mass majority that sell tobacco out of view had highly visible displays of vaping products and cigarette lighters. A paper in the Journal of the European Economic Association found people tend to listen to those who tell them what they want to hear and ignore things they prefer not to be true. Researchers say the findings support theories about biased beliefs in the age of social media and the internet. Let's look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News.
Do they pay for that study?
Right? That sounds like all of my children.
They could have just had Tanya and I just do that story for them. We would have been fine with
Sometimes that sounds like you.
Little top of your screen, starting to see some showers work into Lamar in Barton County. We'll come up, update Northeast Oklahoma right after this.
Coming up, Walgreens says customers who signed up for COVID testing may have had their personal info exposed. And the latest U.S. Census data shows poverty levels are on the rise across the U.S. Also, tips to help you fight insomnia and catch those well-needed Z's.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 6:30. I'm Tanya Bach. A storm rolled through the 4 states overnight. Let's take a look at the forecast and see where it's at now.
Not quite done as of yet. What we'll do is we'll jot down here to Northeast Oklahoma where the hardest rain is ranging in between Jay and Grove, and it has thrown down some lightning as well. As it moves off to the east, we see it move through Mcdonald County into Berry County. Now, it has turned into more showers than heavy torrential rain than what we're seeing as soon as it crosses the Missouri state line. As we move up to Vernon and Barton County, this one that was hanging over Nevada now got a little southeasterly movement as it approaches Lamar right along I-49. Not a whole lot behind it, so after this is done here, say next half an hour, 45 minutes, then we can calm down for the rest of our Wednesday. Live look over 7th and Rangeline. Still waiting on the intersection to dry out after some heavy early morning rain. 66 degrees. Temperatures anywhere from about 63 to 67. 65 through 67 really the dominant number right now. It's very calm and mild when you walk outside. Jet stream remains flat with the activity from us all the way to the Ohio River Valley, riding right where you see the color contour make a difference. As far as Nicholas, now we've got an additional 10 inches of rain expected through eastern Louisiana, portions of Mississippi and Alabama as well. Coast of Texas, however, with a chance to finally calm down. Here in the 4 states, wait till this afternoon and we will get some sunshine. Not going to warm us up too much. Very, very nice. 85 for a high. And then after this morning's rain, we're going to be on the dry side for pretty much the rest of the week and the weekend, with temperatures being able to creep back up into the 90s and take us through the middle of next week.
All right. Well, enjoy the cooler temperatures before it gets hot again.
Even today, technically, if it, let's say we do see 85 at Joplin Regional, that would still be, albeit 1 degree warmer than this time of year.
All right. I'm just hoping when we get to this weekend, the 7-day will actually be going down instead of
eventually.
Oh man, eventually. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Michael. A Joplin man who owns a Pittsburgh business is indicted by a federal grand jury on 5 counts of false statement in a tax return. Kenneth Model owns Model Construction in Pittsburgh. Prosecutors say Model underreported the company's gross income from 2015 to 2019 by more than $1 million. 4 state organizations that serve folks in need feel firsthand the increase in our nation's poverty level over the past 10 years. KOAM's Chris Warner spoke with two of those organizations about what they're seeing in our region.
On Tuesday, the Census Bureau released its Income and Poverty Report, which showed a 1% increase in poverty nationally. New local numbers weren't immediately available, but as of 2019, the city of Joplin had a nearly 19% poverty rate, while the national average is at 10% and the state average is at 12%. The number of people living in poverty is placing an increased demand on local service providers as well.
The stimulus relieved the immediate crisis, which is what we do, but we're starting to see things trend back upward.
For Crosslines, Executive Director Rodney Rambo says they're grateful for the assistance they get from the community to help meet those increased needs.
We were started through the generosity of the community, through the local churches, and we continue to depend on that today. So fortunately, we live in a place where our community tends to respond to need very well.
Rambo says he's concerned the poverty percentage in Joplin could go up.
We do expect that number to continue to increase. Joplin, we tend to have a higher poverty level than the surrounding region.
Over at the Economic Security Corporation, they've seen a 26% increase in customers needing assistance since 2019.
So it definitely could go up. I think if it does, more customers will be seeking assistance. My hope is that some of the programming that we do will help people get out of poverty or get into a better situation.
Community Development Director Tammy Walker says part of that increase is due to the pandemic, but another side effect of the pandemic has been an increase to funding to organizations like Economic Security to provide services.
And we were able to look at the needs in the community and create programs that we haven't done before. For example, we were offering water bill assistance, and that's taken off.
In Joplin, Chris Warner, KOAM News.
Now, for those looking for help, we've put links to Economic Security and to Crosslines in this story on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Missouri Southern receives a grant to learn more about food insecurity with students. The Fosbeck Foundation grant gives the university $25,000 to fund research into food insecurity in Missouri college students. It'll also look at students' access and knowledge of the SNAP program.
Looking at public, private institutions, community colleges, technical schools, and then also asking those students, do you know what SNAP is? Do you know how to access SNAP? And so really getting a better understanding of SNAP knowledge, SNAP awareness, and food insecurity in this population.
Kohlers, who heads up the Lion Co-op, will direct the research. If you'd like to donate to the co-op, you can check out the link to this story on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Well, a pest is causing damage to lawns across the 4 states. Officials say armyworms are spreading across the area, rapidly eating large amounts of grass. Now, armyworms are actually caterpillars that reproduce in large quantities and spread over a field like an army. They feed primarily on Bermuda grass, ryegrass, fescue, bluegrass, and some crops.
Once the worms hatch and turn into moths, they mate and lay more eggs. So if your lawn's been treated before 5 weeks ago or so, doesn't mean there's not more coming from around you going to lay eggs in your lawn, hatch, and continue damage.
Experts say one of the most effective ways to prevent their spread is to just be aware and take action if you notice any problems. Pandemic-related insomnia still impacts a lot of people. According to the National Institutes of Health, 40% of people have dealt with COVID insomnia during the pandemic. Some local health professionals have seen every age group, from children to adults, having trouble sleeping because of the pandemic. But they have some tips to help you get more and better sleep.
Take a break from any device that has a screen on it, because those screens shine light at us, and that tells us it's time to get up, it's time to be alert. Having standard bedtimes and arousal times, if it goes for a week or more when people are having difficulties initiating and maintaining sleep, it's appropriate to speak with your physician at that period of time.
A local psychologist says if someone has a mental illness like anxiety or depression, insomnia can be particularly harmful. If you endure the cycle of sleeplessness so long that it sends you into a crisis, the Ozark Center has a crisis intervention line. That's 417-347-7720. Again, that number 417-347-7720. That's a look at our top news stories. Coming up this half hour on the KOAM Morning News, the recall in California.
California's governor has survived the recall election. I'm Anthony Pura with reaction from the governor and his opponents.
Plus, is it time to upgrade your iPhone? We let you weigh in, but first, it's 6:37.
Here's what we're looking at for the rain, mostly down to the south through northeast Oklahoma, making its way through Mcdonald and Berry counties, and still holding on to some rain showers that have now moved out of Vernon County and into Barton County along I-49 in Lamar. Temperatures today, mid-80s. Wait for some late afternoon, early evening sunshine, and then get ready for heat 90s for the weekend. Nation Watch next.
Topping Nation Watch this morning, CBS News is projecting Gavin Newsom will remain governor of California. Exit polls and early voting numbers show voters rejecting his recall by a nearly 2-to-1 margin. Anthony Pura reports from Los Angeles.
Governor Gavin Newsom appears to have beaten back an effort to recall him from office. The outcome of the race was projected in his favor less than an hour after the polls closed.
I'm humbled and grateful to the millions and millions of Californians that exercised their fundamental right to vote.
Early returns showed roughly 2/3 of voters opposed the recall effort. A final count is expected to take days to complete because of the high number of mailed-in ballots.
No is not the only thing that was expressed tonight. I want to focus on what we said yes to as a state. We said yes to science. We said yes to vaccines. We said yes to ending this pandemic.
Had the recall succeeded, Newsom would probably have been replaced by Republican talk radio host Larry Elder, who has a commanding lead among the field of potential replacement candidates.
When I become governor, if there are still state mandates for face masks and for vaccines, they're going to be repealed.
Kevin Paffrath, one of the few Democrats in the race, said Elder's campaign promises backfired.
Gavin Newsom branded anyone other than him as willing to undo vaccine mandates, undo mask mandates, and folks had the fear of God put in them that, oh my gosh, COVID's going to kill us all. And so that was a gift to Gavin Newsom.
After delivering his victory speech last night, Governor Newsom tweeted, quote, "Now let's get back to work." Anthony Pura, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Now, Newsom could face Elder again in the not-too-distant future. The governor is up for re-election next year, and the primary, which puts candidates from all parties on one ballot, is just 9 months away. Comedian and former Saturday Night Live star Norm Mcdonald has died at the age of 61 after a long battle with cancer. Mcdonald was best known in the 1990s for anchoring the show's Weekend Update segment for 3 seasons with an iconic dry and deadpan sense of humor. Following his departure from SNL, the Canadian-born comic starred in his very own sitcom dubbed The Norm Show from '99 to 2001. He also appeared as a beloved regular on late-night shows like Letterman and Conan. His team confirmed McDonald had been battling cancer for nearly a decade, but kept his diagnoses private from the public. That's a look at today's top national stories. Let's check back in with Michael for something to talk about.
Thank you, Tanya. On the KOAM News Now Facebook page in our morning Instapoll, as Apple released a number of new devices yesterday, including a new iPad and an Apple Watch. The most anticipated is the Apple iPhone 13. Our question to you is, do you plan on purchasing the new Apple iPhone? 63% of you, however, saying no, hasn't even crossed my radar because you're not a fan of Apple. Only 5% right now saying yes, that's going to happen ASAP. 32% saying maybe, but it's going to take a while. You can always participate by going to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. We'll be back with birthdays and anniversaries next.
We take this time to honor today's four-state hero, Sergeant Jacob Tunnell in the U.S. Army. The soldier from Baxter Springs, Kansas, joined the 55th MAC Engineers in 2007. Sergeant Tunnell served tours in both Iraq and in Afghanistan. To Sergeant Jacob Tunnell, we thank you, our four-state hero.
We're celebrating number 5. Darren, beautiful, beautiful picture, and a happy birthday to you in Pittsburgh.
All right, I like all the rainbows on the tablecloth, too. Fun. We've got Scarlett Scheibe celebrating birthday number 5 as well. Look at that smile. She She looks like she's up to something. Scarlett is in Parson. Birthday wish is coming with love from Mom.
Crew Burns celebrating the big number 5 as well. Sharp dressed dude right there. Happy birthday to Crew in St. Paul with love from Grandma and Grandpa.
All right, in Pittsburgh, Nova Brand celebrating birthday number 7 this year.
We've got one of the Brandons. It's Madison. Happy birthday, Miss Madison. She is turning 18. She is enjoying her senior year at Labette County High School. A little Grizzly pride right there. She's in Altamont.
All right, and Gage Riker celebrating birthday number 24 this year in Columbus.
Out to Chanute, Miss Georgetta Susser celebrating her 74th birthday. Georgetta, have a marvelous, marvelous birthday.
All right, and David Eddington in Columbus. Happy birthday to you.
Also in Columbus, the Beards celebrating 20 years. Congratulations, Jason and Amanda, and a very happy anniversary.
All right. In Minden Mines, John Doherty celebrating another year wiser. And two of our favorite people, right, Michael?
Where's the picture?
Yeah. Daryl and Shirley Thompson, 48 years of wedded bliss. They're in Columbus, Kansas.
Daryl, that is clearly your bad because Shirley she's flawless, and that's why I clearly point the finger at Daryl right there. Nice job, AT. But you help your parents out, send in a picture. Jiminy Christmas.
I think he gets yelled at.
Congratulations, Daryl and Shirley. You know we love you guys. Happy birthday, happy anniversary to all. Here's where you can send them into birthdays at KOAMTV.com, or you can submit them online at KOAMNewsNow.com as well. Now, here's Tanya Bach with a very important birthday announcement.
That's right. You can be a part of the KOAM Birthday Club by going to our website and signing up. And once you do, you'll get special deals from local businesses. Go to KOAMNewsNow.com and sign up for the KOAM Birthday Club today.
Still got some lingering rain from our early morning thunderstorm activity. We'll concentrate. We'll go north to south here. We'll start with the one in Barton County hanging over Lamar on I-49. This actually moved out of Vernon County. Speaking of Vernon County, that's where we saw as much as 3 inches of rain from overnight into this morning. It was nice that Vernon gets a little break here. Those are just some showers. Down here, we got some heavy rain coming through Delaware County in the Grove area. Everything has stayed south of Miami and I-44 here for the last half hour or so, and our lightning has greatly died down. But then as this thing moves off to the east, it crosses over into Mcdonald County, Missouri, turns more into showers than it does heavy rain, and continues there from Berry County until it finally pushes out of our area. Nothing to speak of on the backside of it. We got a little pop-up right here coming down by Fredonia. That's going to be right by the old roundabout. So that's not resulting in much. And this down here that we see, they go, is that headed our way? Nah, that's going to dip down to the south. It's going to take that southerly track, head toward OKC. So really, after we get done with this one down to the south, that's going to be the end of our heavy rain. Joplin and Rangeline finally beginning to dry out because it's been a while since they had any raindrops over there, and sitting at 66 degrees. We're ranging anywhere from about 63 to 67 on this Wednesday morning. Let's run down south and check out Nicholas, as it is now a tropical depression, no longer a tropical storm, a tropical depression. And as it pushes across the Texas-Louisiana state line, still looking at an additional 10 inches of rain for not only eastern Louisiana, but also Mississippi and parts of Alabama as well. As far as the Texas Gulf Coast, while they're underwater, at least they can begin their cleanup. They'll have a couple days of dry weather as well. We'll have dry weather as soon as we get rid of this thing here in about the next 30 minutes or so. Our weather trend then, we wait for the clouds to break, and this afternoon we will have some afternoon, early evening sunshine and get up around 85 degrees. Absolutely perfect outside. Now, as far as what we're going to have overnight into tomorrow, well, starting to get a little bit warmer each and every day to the point where, we got 90s for the latter third of September. We'll be back, wrap up this edition of the KOAM Morning News right after this. Final look at the Insta poll. 66% of you saying no, not worried about the new iPhone 13 coming out. Only 4% saying, yeah, plan on picking it up as soon as possible. You can take part each and every morning by going to KOAMNewsNow.com/vote or connecting to us via our Facebook page. Tanya?
News you need to know before you head out the door. A major U.S. pharmacy says customers who registered for COVID-19 tests may have had their data exposed. Reports say Walgreens exposed the information of its customers on its website through its test registration system. Experts say a link to the confirmed test reservation gives access to private information with no login required. This includes access to birthdays, phone numbers, addresses, and emails. The U.S. Census Bureau announces new income and poverty data for the U.S. It shows the poverty level increased 1% nationally. Here in the 4 states, officials with the Economic Security say they've seen a 26% increase in clients since 2019, partly due to the pandemic. Crosslines Ministry says it's seen peaks and valleys, but is beginning to see a steady increase in those seeking assistance. Missouri Southern receives a grant to learn more about food insecurity among students. The Fosbeck Foundation grant gives the university $25,000 to fund research into food insecurity in Missouri college students. It'll also look at students' access to and knowledge of the SNAP program. Well, there's a lawn invasion underway in the 4 states. Armyworms are spreading across the area, rapidly eating large amounts of grass. Armyworms are actually caterpillars that reproduce in large quantities and spread over a field like an army. They feed primarily on Bermuda grass, ryegrass, fescue, bluegrass, and some crops. Experts say armyworms can destroy areas as large as a football field in 2 to 3 days. There are some insecticides you can use to protect your lawn. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
We're getting closer. Each and every passing minute, we see the rain, at least as far as northeast Oklahoma goes, beginning to lighten up, and it's going to continue to move through Mcdonald and Berry County for, say, probably next half hour at least. And then nice thing is up here on I-49 up by Lamar, that thing's really lightening up as well. So, like I said, we're headed in the right direction. It's going to be a while, though, before we have any type of a warm-up because of our heavy cloud cover that remains over us, and mid-80s. Can't beat that for later on this afternoon after the clouds do begin to break. Dry after that, headed into the weekend, and doing so with temperatures back into the 90s.
Right, well, coming up today at noon, we're making homemade pretzel rolls in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
Morning news continues on KOAM, CBS Morning News. That's coming up next.
Or you can switch on over with us on Fox 14, where your only local morning news continues.
This morning, we need to catch up with Tara Solomon-Smith, and also, too, you have a space story.
Yes, SpaceX is going to attempt to launch the Inspiration 4. We're going to meet one of the crew members.
All right.
I'm excited about that. Yes. This young lady is about to make history for multiple reasons.
Very cool. All right, so flip on over. We'll see you over there. That wraps it up for this Wednesday. Enjoy a mild afternoon. Do me a favor. Be safe. We'll do this all again tomorrow morning.
And we're going to do it again today at noon.